Okay, algebra students, we're on page 27. Page 27. So it says using the following graphs of linear functions to answer the accompanying questions. Use the following graphs: f of x, g of x. First question is A. Which is greater, f when x is 2 or g when x is 2? Well, here's when x is 2. Let's label the axes x, y. How do you know? Okay, well, look. When f of 2, the function f of 2 is 3. The function g of 2, when x is 2, is 1. Here's the points. Okay, so moving on to the next question. For which value of x is f of x equal to g of x? Here's a function f of x. Here's a function g of x. Now, where they cross is when they are exactly equal to each other. This seems to be at point x equals 1. You see that? Right there. Okay. So to answer the question for which value of x is f of x equals to g of x, answer is x equals 1. For which values of x is f of x greater than or equal to g of x? F of x greater or equal to g of x. So I can see g of x runs this way. F of x runs this way, all the way. Okay, it doesn't really end, it just keeps on going. So the question is, for what values of x is f of x greater than g of x? Well, here it's equal, but for f of x to be greater than g of x, greater or equal to, it would include the point 1, because we'll just drop that down. This is x values, starts at 1. And looks like this. Because look at the f of x. This is a line. Look at the g of x. This is a line. This is descending. This is going up. From this point on, f of x is always going to be greater than g of x. And the values of x is including 1 and all values greater or equal to 1. Okay. Okay. Question C. For which values of x is f of x greater or equal to g of x? I think we just did that right here. Okay, write your answer in set notation. Okay, let's do that. All values of x such that x is greater or equal to 1. Okay, everybody got that? Because all values greater or equal to 1 is going to give you the x values of when f of x is greater than g of x. Do you see that? Okay. So you really got to pay attention to the details to really understand what's going on, because this stuff can get real complicated real fast. Okay. So we just take it step by step with 100% focus, because even I get a hard time figuring this out many times. Okay. So next question. For which values of x is f of x less than g of x? F of x is less than g of x. So it would be this area. I can just see it with my eyeball right there. Write your answer in set notation. Okay, let's do that. All values x such that x is less than 1. Okay. See if that makes sense to you. All values less than x is equal to 1. Less than 1. Here we go. This is your function value f, function value g. So to the left of 1, which is all values of x less than 1, would give you this part of the graph of your f of x, where f of x is less than g of x. Less than g of x, okay? Okay, I hope you guys got that. If you're paying attention, you should have gotten it. If not, you can ask me questions tomorrow or the next day. Okay, moving on to the next problem, problem 2. Okay. We have two functions here, f of x, g of x. This is a little bit tricky problem. Okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of just extend this line here. Like that. Let's draw it a little bit longer to make it easier for us to figure out. Okay. This is still part of g of x. This is still part of f of x. So the first question is the function f of x when x is -4 greater than the function g when x is -4. Okay, let's first find out where -4 is. -4 is here. This is the x, this is the y axis. Here's -4. You can see -4 would be extended like this. And then the points that we're talking about are here and here. This one is for x, g of x. This one is for f of x. So the question is, the function at -4 is less than the function g of -4. Let's double check again. F of x when it's -4 is less than g of x when g of x is -4 also, which is true. Yes. F of x when x is -4 is way down here. G of x when x is -4 is up here. So the g of x function, it'll be higher when x equals -4. Okay, we're going to be moving on now. You can see that right there and right there. G of x, f of x. Okay. Okay, our next question. For which values of x is it true that f of x is less than or equal to g of x? which values of x, so they want the values of x, is true when f of x, this thing here, is less than g of x, less than this one here. So I can just see from this point, okay, from this point this way, f of x is less than g of x. F of x is less than or equal to g of x. Would be this point here. Right there. All values of x, when f of x is less than g of x, which is this, okay, so all this value right here, less than or equal to, so it's a closed circle going to the left, right here, going this way. Okay. Okay. How about for C? Let's take a look at that. Now, how would you write that? Okay, it says here. How would you write this? Okay, let's write it. All values of x such that x is less than or equal to -3. It's -3 right here. Okay. Okay. For C, for which values of x is it true that f of x is greater or equal to g of x? Again, which values of x is it true that f of x is greater when f of x is greater or equal to g of x? So now we're going to see from this point this way is what the question is asking. When f of x is greater, you see f of x is greater than g of x from this point on, from the -3 point on. Okay, so we're going to graph that on the number line. Here's the number line there for question B. Now we're going to answer question C over here. Okay, let's do that. So let's just call this point -3. And f of x is going to be less than or equal to, greater than or equal to g of x. So here's g of x. Okay, pay attention. Here's g of x. Here's f of x. So when f of x is greater than g of x, which is from here on, you can see from this point this way are the values that we've been asked to state. Okay, which is from -3, closed circle, that means it includes -3 also. From that point on, it's going this way, going to the right. Okay, let's just color that in right there. Okay, can you see that? This is page 27, right there on the bottom. Okay, I hope you guys got this. There's a lot more to go, but we're going to cover some of this in class, either tomorrow or the next day. Okay, guys? Until then, study hard. Every minute you put into your study is a minute that you'll gain for getting a good grade. So please focus and study hard. Remember, my expectation is 1 hour a night. Whether you have this class or not, 1 hour a night, 5 days a week. and then you'll almost guaranteed to get an A in this class. Okay? So, have a good evening, guys. Talk to you later. Good night.